This episode of Sales Players is brought to you by Leadfeeder. You can use the link in the show notes to set up a 21-day extended trial of Leadfeeder for you and your team. You're a sales hunter with literally hundreds of target accounts in your territory and no idea who in your patch is even in the market for your solution. You've pulled all the reports, built all the lists, and you've done a bunch of account research, but you're still in the dark about where to find your low-hanging fruit. And look, you could waste another quarter smiling and dialing, grinding through a cold list and blasting out emails, or you could do what I do and get Leadfeeder. Leadfeeder identifies the companies that visit your company's website and tracks on-site activity so you can see which leads from your region are ready to buy right now. Leadfeeder has customizable notifications, lead scoring, routing, and it works seamlessly with your CRM system. Right now, Sales Players has got the hookup on an extended 21-day free trial offer. So be sure to use the link in the show notes to sign up. Stop burning time and resources on leads that don't convert and sign up for Leadfeeder. Welcome to Sales Players, the #1 podcast for top players in B2B sales. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the world of sales, this is the show for you. We're all about bringing you fresh, actionable ideas to supercharge your rev gen game. We dive deep into the mindset, habits, and tools used by top performers in the industry. Generate more leads, close more deals, and build wealth and financial security in B2B sales. So if you're ready to level up, you've come to the right place. Join the conversation with other like-minded sales players and continue the discussion beyond the show. Hit the subscribe button, tune into the Sales Players, and let's start winning together. All right, we are live, and I'm super excited about today's episode. Mostly because we've got a guest who I have been following for about a decade, I want to say, or at least coming up on a decade. And I know in my first SDR role, I came across Morgan Ingram's content out there, his podcast at the time. And so super excited. And I've also had the great pleasure of being able to meet him in person recently. So very excited about that as well. But wanted to welcome Morgan onto Sales Players. Welcome, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to start out just taking a big step back. Tell us how you got into the line of work that you're in now. Where did it all begin for you? How did you start creating content? What has gotten you onto this path that you're on that's got you where you are today?
Yeah. So right after I graduated college, I started a public speaking business, which I don't think a lot of people, that's probably not what they're doing after college. And so, yeah, most people don't know about it. So with the high schools and middle schools and basically gave like motivational talks. I did like open mic nights and stuff, like, but just like public speaking. It's funny because I graduated with sports management and finance double majors. So my parents were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I promise you, like, this is the way. And so as I started doing more of that, I realized that in order to get more money, you have to have a topic that you have a expertise in. So when I went to the National Speakers Association in Atlanta, that's what one of the guys told me. Is like, you need to get some expertise. You should go into sales. And so I originally didn't want to get into sales. I actually wanted to get into marketing. I applied to like 20 something roles to help them with their content. So at this point I knew that content was going to be the future and like understanding it was going to be so important. And so I didn't get in any of those roles, but I knew that if I could just get in a role to showcase I could do content, then that would be good. So what I did is I ended up working at a company called Terminus. And at that company, I was an SDR, but I told them in the interview, I was like, hey, I want to give you an SDR for like 6 months and then I want to go to marketing. Cause I was like, I just want to know how to do content, which is ironic because I never went into the marketing role. I stayed in sales, but that's how I got my content start. Is I documented my journey as an SDR. And I know we'll talk about that today. And it was called the SDR Chronicles. And it was during a time where nobody was creating content. It was non-existent. And that's what put me on the map and has allowed me to grow my brand moving forward. Now today, I primarily and solely focus on content creation, the influencer marketing, building internal influencers right within organizations, because now people are starting to realize it's important. But that's where I got my content start, and I've been doing it ever since.
Amazing. And did you work with, so one of the things that I've actually, when I got into sales, I got into Toastmasters. Was Toastmasters a part of your your deal? Do you suggest people to do this, or
I suggest people to do Toastmasters. It's a great experience to speak in front of people in a safe environment, right? It also is a great way to learn impromptu speaking and how to speak on topics you may not be comfortable with. So yeah, I think I did it for like 3 months. It was great. I actually really enjoyed it. I also studied public speaking. Like I saw people that would do like convention speeches and I would see how they would speak. So that was another way of how I went about it. But yeah, I absolutely love studying that. It was great.
So talk to us then about you start creating content, and when did you feel like it started to take off, or what what signals did you have that the market really liked what you were creating?
It was like 20. So I think it took about like probably 10, 11 months and this is me when I really felt it. Like I had momentum. I was getting likes and stuff, but I think it really hit me when I went back to the event, my first event I ever went to. I came back as a speaker. So it was like 3 months into an SDR role. I was like not doing well and I almost like quit and I probably was going to get fired. And then the year later, I went to the same event and now I was a speaker. So that was like a full circle moment for sure.
Wow.
But in that moment, it was like the week before, it was like a manager at Salesforce had posted that every SDR should follow the channel. So that was like really big and that was really cool. And then at the event, people were wanting to take selfies and wanted to ask me all these questions. So this was like, okay, this is clearly working. People want to take selfies. So that's clearly an indicator. So I actually found that to be very interesting once that started happening. And it was like super cool.
That I think I remember you and I talked about this when we met up. Like just how it might be a little weird that you have people probably approach you at airports, I'm assuming, and say like, I know you, I've followed you for a long time. I listened to your stuff when I was an SDR or whatever. What does that feel like? I mean, being a business content creator and then having like some notoriety or fame even.
It's weird because it's not what you think it's not what you think it's going to be. Right. So like most people are like, hey, like I know you from YouTube or I know you from Instagram, or now back in the day, it didn't exist. I know you from TikTok. Those things make sense. But to say, oh, I know you from LinkedIn is a very weird statement. It's odd. It's just like, okay, like that's not what I thought it would be. So it's just very interesting when I have to, I meet somebody new or whatever, and I say, yeah, like I create content on LinkedIn. They're like, what does that even mean? And then I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. And they're like, wait, that's a big deal. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not trying to.
You're not trying to flex, but you're like, yeah, I've made millions of dollars just from my LinkedIn.
Yeah. And it's like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, that's the case. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. So I think that's what makes it super intriguing and also interesting at the same time, is that that's happening. But I think it's also a cool thing because, I started so early. I learned a lot. And there's some people who've taken it to a whole new level, right? But like, I always be like, yeah, I know I started that early. It was good. That period of time when I was an SDR was fun.
Yeah.
And were you following a framework from somebody else to help you with the cadence, or did you have a framework that you like basically like said, okay, I'm going to post every day, do a video?
Yeah. So here, my advice is going to be legit tactical advice and not fluff advice. So awesome. I have a hot take right now. I was just talking to someone about this, is that I actually don't like the advice, be authentic. Because it doesn't really mean anything if you think about it. It's just like, be authentic. So what does that actually mean? Someone can't take that and actually do something with it.
Yeah, because I guess what if my authentic self is like a super introvert? I guess, what do I do with that?
If my authentic self is just being belligerent?
Yeah.
Right. That might not work, right?
So I'm authentically an asshole, so I'm just going to wear that.
Yeah. So I get the premise and I'm not downing it. Like, yeah, you need to be authentic. I get that. But like, it doesn't tactically tell you what to do. So my whole thing that I tell people is our aim is to be subject matter experts and credible with our content. I'm just a huge fan of him right now. And what they're doing is Alex Hormozi, Layla Hormozi, acquisition.com. Yeah. I'm biased because I just went to the workshop. So I obviously have more affinity to it right now. But I will say is that like the reason that he does well with this content is not because like he wears cool stuff or like, oh, his wife beard is cool or his calves are dope. Like, and he's authentically like, no, like, I don't think that even matters. Like, it's because he's credible. Mm-hmm. He's done something. He has the proof and you're going to listen to him. It's the same thing with like, great example that I'm going to start talking about is Mark Benioff. Mark Benioff just posted for the first time, I believe yesterday, and he has like 18,000 likes. It's not formatted correctly. There's no hook. And it's just a random video, not a random video. It's a video promoting the product, but it's got like 18,000 likes right now. And like, it's not even formatted right. So what am I saying is that like, that's credit. He built a big company.
Right.
He's credible. So people are going to listen to him. So I think it comes down to like showing credibility. And so how do you do that if you maybe don't have the proof that these people have? So number one is my process was documenting everything. So at the end of the day, when I did the SDR Chronicles, all those videos were me recording at the end of the week or at the end of my day. So all those videos were inside of the workplace. Like I would just go downstairs and I would record it. Like no editing, no anything. It was very raw style because it was just like real. It's like, this is like how I'm going about it. And so you need to think about how you're documenting things. I think two is like, I broke down tactically what I was doing throughout my day that I've struggled with because I knew, okay, someone else probably struggles with this. And the third thing is finding ways to, as you share your journey and as you share tactics to like, I guess like name it something. So I would have like themes throughout the week. I'd have like Tactical Tuesday, Fun Fact Friday, whatever. So I continuously always build throughout the years. And now it's 8 years of building, of creating content, and like it just have to evolve. You have to always continuously adjust. But those are the things I would say that have been really helpful.
How important for your average seller out there listening to this right now is content creation? Because I know we're in a world now where it's a lot harder to reach someone over the phone.
Yeah.
That's not me saying cold calling's dead. I still cold call. I still think it's a great way to reach people.
Of course.
But it's certainly more nuanced now than just, when I started in my career, it was like smile and dial. That's the main channel. We didn't even have outreach sequences or anything like that. We would just load everybody up into like a BCC line of an email and blast 1,000 people. So obviously times have changed in terms of selling, and content is now moving into the picture in a big way, which is if you're on LinkedIn and you're posting and you're talking about your industry, you're more likely to get a follower that may become a warm lead or a prospect that comes into your funnel, and then you can sell them, software or media or whatever it is you sell. But talk to us, like, one, how can someone get started on that journey, and just how critical is that going forward in sales from your perspective?
So when I say this, hear me correctly, everybody listen to that, because you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it at first. You'd be like, Morgan, that doesn't make sense. As a rep, don't focus on content creation. Right. Focus on content curation. And so I'll explain what that means. So content creation is, how can I find topics that someone's already speaking on and add my context to it? Or how can I find people that are posting or whatever it is, and how can I comment on their posts? So you need to be looking at content for sure. I would actually recommend tell your executives and leaders and CEOs, whoever, to create the content. That's what you should be doing. Now, on the other end, what we're really focused on is the creation. So for a rep, it's like, how can I take this blog post and then share my insights on what I learned from it? How can I take this podcast and say, I listened to the CIO and here are the 3 things I learned from the CIO? These are easy things to do. You're not going to get 1 million likes, but if you get 10 likes and all the 10 people that are you're trying to get in front of are at that company, that's way more beneficial than whatever you were currently doing. So that's what I mean by content curation. Find things that are relevant in that topic, give your opinion and your context, and then you go from there.
So I love that, because that's more or less how I started. And, I post pretty frequently my own content now, but I definitely spent several years first resharing things that I had read. And that was like sometimes as dumb as just like, hey, I really liked this Forbes article about whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it was like specific to what my prospects would be interested in, like something related to MarTech or something. Like, hey, this is kind of an interesting trend. Just thought I'd share on LinkedIn. And then this does a bunch of things. One, it just kind of gets you into the habit of creating. Then after a while, you're going to start saying like, oh, I could add my own thoughts or overlay onto this and say, hey, here's my take on where this is headed. And then when you have a period where you're like, I can't think of anything to write, or I don't have any content in the hopper to put out there, you can always go back to the curation versus just creation.
Exactly. I would say, post twice a week to get started. And if you're already doing your research, this shouldn't take you that long to do. And I would go from there, right? To continuously put yourself out there. So you don't have to make this a crazy process. I believe it's very simple. Start with those steps and you just go from there.
And Morgan, I've been watching your content a lot lately, and you're talking about not influencer marketing for B2B marketer. What are you calling it? It's for businesses to actually have not influencers, but what are you calling it that?
Oh, subject matter experts.
Yeah, subject matter experts. And I just want to talk to you about, how do you feel about going after like a actual business and becoming a subject matter expert for another SaaS company when you're not even working for that? So that company, how would you go after that?
Are you talking about like from a sales rep perspective, or like how do I talk to the company about doing what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I would say more like for you, as moving from an actual sales rep to what you're doing today, like how do you go outbound for those companies themselves?
yeah. So this is another very interesting take. I'm giving you all the hot takes today. I've
Yeah,
been
let's
like,
hear 'em.
I've been like writing, and I have a lot of these hot takes that I have, and I'm about to start posting them. We'll see what happens. It is what it is. But the thing is, like, everyone right now is extremely tapped in and wanting to know how to do influencer marketing, because now they're like, okay, the outbound in the pipeline is just harder to get. I'm not saying that you should just completely stop doing outbound. I'm just saying it's just harder. And I think everyone could acknowledge that. I don't think anyone's saying that it's easier, right? So that's why we went this route with AMP, is saying, hey, we want to do influencer marketing content because we believe it's the future of like how people are going to just sell in general, right? This is how it's going to go. Now, to answer your question, as I've been talking to executives, and I continuously get this data point in all my calls, because I keep AI to tell me what are the takeaways from the call, and I try to see the themes. The theme that's been the most consistent is anytime I directly say, what's your take on influencer marketing? And then they explain it. And then I say, do you actually care about the word influencer or thought leader? They're like, I don't like that word at all. And they'll say, I don't like this word, and it's the reason why I don't want to create content. So then I tell them, hey, what if I just told you, you just need to be a subject matter expert, and we're just putting your content out there to expand that subject expertise? Then they're like, okay, that makes sense. I'm more open to making content. So I'm telling you that isn't like the way that I sell, the way that I outbound, and just with anything, right? We can break down how I've sold like B2B Sales and how I sold Terminus. Like I came to this conclusion that it's really like everyone knows this thing, right? Influencer marketing. But like, I'm just approaching it with a different tactical viewpoint. Like, influencer marketing gets me in the door, but it doesn't keep me in the house. What keeps me in the house is saying, hey, you just want to be a subject matter expert, and you want to share that expertise at scale. And we can help you do that for sure, because that's what I've done my entire career. I was a subject matter expert. Like, I just happened to be labeled an influencer as everybody started creating content, but like, that wasn't the part. That wasn't the point. The point was, I have a subject matter expertise as an SDR because I'm currently an SDR. Actually, in the role hitting quota, so I'm going to tell you what to do, right? And so that worked. And so now it's like the same thing. It's like I just go to people saying, I am my own use case, and I can help you do that as well. And also, I think the biggest benefit that I have is I can say, hey, I was 4 months into my first time job, and I was able to create a brand. You don't think that I can't do that with you, who has 20 years of experience? I'm pretty sure we could figure it out.
Wow. That's a really helpful perspective shift. It's subject matter expert. It's not influencer. And I can see why people are turned off by the influencer brand or name. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's you're teaching a skill set that you know how to do. You're not even teaching it as much as just showing it or building it in public so that people can learn and see how you do it, which is incredibly helpful in sales, because there's no, I don't think so. There's no graduate degree in selling software or something. Like you can go to school.
I don't think it's out there yet. I don't think it's out there yet. So I think we're good.
Unlike like law or medicine or something like that, there's no, board exam that you take to become a great seller, right? You just have to learn from how other people are doing it and replicate what other people are doing, which is why the kind of content that you're creating is so important, because it is, very tactical. It's very specific in how you can execute. And so I love that, the whole subject matter expert distinction.
It's incredibly important. And I even did that in my own personal brand deals. I just stopped saying that I was an influencer. I was like, I actually think about things completely differently. Like, I'm a subject matter expert, and here's how we do it. And then it actually has increased the way that people perceive me, and also has increased the partnerships with people. And it's just a different way of looking at it. And so you have to give people a different viewpoint. And then that's when I said, okay, I understand it's subject. I understand that it's influencer market, whatever. But I'm saying, it's actually just being a subject matter expert, because in B2B, if you're not credible, you won't last long. You can get away with having good content for a while, but I've seen a lot of people not make it because they actually weren't credible in that topic.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about that because one thing I've noticed is you're still like, and you run your own company now, and you're creating content, you do consulting and advising on this topic, this subject matter expertise. But your stuff is real. Like, you really are closing enterprise deals. It's very clear from your posts that you're still very much like feeling the pulse of the industry. Whereas, without naming any names, there's some, LinkedIn content creators out there that it's very clear that they've been away from the game of selling for 5 years.
Yeah.
Because they've been focused on growing their consultancy. So the question here is, how does someone like you stay so sharp? Is it really just come down to you're still playing the game every single day? Or are there other resources that we're not aware of that you're studying every day to make sure you're like the best at the craft? Like, give us some of the, spill the tea, man.
I just play video games, and that's all I do. And it's like,
I know, right? Yeah.
You gotta come through though. I got this arcade emulator. You gotta pull up.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right,
I saw that.
I
absolutely
got to do that.
Yeah, Chase, you gotta pull up whenever. Yeah, we gotta do that. So, but deviating. So I would say
GoldenEye, baby, GoldenEye.
Oh man, it's so many good games on there.
Awesome.
I would say like working with John was one of the best decisions of my career, because I saw him still prospect.
Wow.
So I think that was the thing, right? Because it was like, dude, you don't really need to be like going this hard. But he still was like, he still would write the emails. I still like, hey, you should do these videos, and he would send the videos because he was like, I need to be in the game. Now, obviously, he's not making 100 cold calls a day. That's obviously absurd. But he's still doing. He's still in it to a degree. And so I just saw that, and it made me be like, you know what? Like, obviously, like I don't make. Yeah, transparently, I don't make 100 cold calls a day like I used to when I was an SDR. I'm not doing 50 personalized emails a day. Like, that's crazy. But am I still DMing LinkedIn messages to like test certain stuff? Sure. Am I still doing voice notes? Absolutely. Am I still doing some personalized emails when I'm trying to get in front of an account? Sure. Because I know ultimately, even though our main offering and focus at AMP is to help these internal influencers, right, or subject matter experts, these leaders turn into creators of the platform, because I believe that will drive pipeline and revenue for them. I still am in the essence of talking and being in the sales game, because that is the audience I speak to for the brand partnerships that I have, right? So it's twofold to a degree. But I will say that like, it's number one is that like I'm staying in the trenches, like working with an enterprise company and things of that nature. Like, I'm just sharing the journey on like what I did with the SDR Chronicles, and do that. And be transparent with you, it's sharing the journey was easy in the beginning because it was the only thing that I knew. But as you continuously evolve in content, there's so many lanes you can go. And so I had to be like, let's get back to the fundamentals and just share like, hey, I closed this deal. And it's funny. I think number two is you got to have people around you that push to continuously be tactical.
Yeah.
Because I was on a content call, to be transparent with everybody, and I was like, all right, here's some content to think about. And my chief of staff's like, yo, why don't you talk about that deal you closed? And I was like, oh, God. That's probably helpful for some people, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up being a good plus for people, and people liked it. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, sometimes I get in my own way of the things that I need to create and put out there, because some of that's like secondhand. It's like, yeah, okay, close the deal. That's cool. But like, that's actually helpful for people, and we got to do that. And so I think the third thing is I consume content and I look at things, but I don't take what the tactic is and share that exact tactic. I just frame it differently. So I don't know if y'all notice, sometimes I'll be like, here's my Green Lantern play, right? Out of nowhere. Or I'll be like, hey, here's my Spider-Man cadence. It's the same cadence I shared like maybe 2 years ago, right? But I named it something, and now it makes it more unique. Like, whoa, this is different, right? I made a couple tweaks. So now what I'm doing is like, I'm thinking about how do I name things differently so that I can get excited about it. Or I'm like, I did all these different things in this process. Is there a play in here I can name it something, and so I can get granular here? So those are fun things I've been doing that people really like. So that's been cool.
So repurposing content then, but so just to clarify, do you change, it's the same campaign, but the name changes, or it's a different campaign with a distinct, okay, cool.
Both. So it could be the same campaign, but now I name it something. Like I called it, I was just here's this play. Now I'm like, here's the name of the play. And then if people like the play, then I'm like, I'll run the play again, and then I'll I'll make adjustments. Or it's like, I have a post coming out, I think next week. And last week I did a play and it booked me like 3 meetings. And I was like, oh, sick. Okay. So what's the name of this play now? Because people like that. So then I'm like, I named it something. So then boom, I'm going to name it something and we go from there. So yeah, it's real-time things that I'm doing, but things I've done in the past to see like, is this still relevant? I do the play, I refine, I adjust. But ultimately, everything I'm telling you is things that I am currently doing or have recently showed someone on what to do.
Yeah.
Morgan, I want to ask you how you suggest people to go to their leadership to say, hey, I am actually posting content. One of the things that I did when Jesse asked me to be a part of the podcast was I went to my leadership and I said, hey guys, I'm going to be doing this sales podcast. Are you okay with it? And the CEO said, yep, we're good to go. And so I just wanted to be clear about that I was going to be doing this sort of side project. But do you have any suggestions on how to bring this topic up in an environment of a business? Because you are actually going to be bringing them sales if you do this correctly.
I would just get a pulse check and say, hey, I'm thinking about creating this content. I know on LinkedIn, this is a huge thing that people are talking about. Have you all considered doing it yourselves? Is there a program that you're about to start? Because sometimes they may be already starting a program and you could lead that or be a part of it. So that's a big piece as well. If they're not, say, hey, this is something that is not going to take away from what I'm doing. It's just an add-on. So it's a little bit different now because I was in an office, but just make sure that it doesn't eat up your current work, right? You still got to do your work. I did all my content outside of work. By the way. So I did on the weekend, after work, et cetera, like all that content that came out during the SDR Chronicles, like I wasn't doing that at work. It was funny. People would come and interview and like, oh, you're the SDR Chronicles guy. Don't you just make videos all day long? And I'm like, no, like I'm actually an SDR. Like I actually like am making calls. Like I'm not I'm not just sitting here in a lab making videos. Like I did that before and after work or on the weekend. So I would just say if you create the content, make time for it appropriately. And then once it starts to hit, you can ramp it up, but just be mindful of it.
Yeah.
Good suggestion.
All right. So I got a question I've been dying to ask you, Morgan. One of my sort of philosophies, and I've talked about this on the show before, is that really good business people make great salespeople, or great business people make amazing salespeople, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
The summary being that if you're good at the art of business or you understand how businesses and organizations work and you're curious and you dig into stuff, you're going to be really good at sales, especially at the enterprise level.
Yep.
Because it does require a certain level of being able to go in and understand how a large brand makes decisions or moves the trains along, so to speak. So I know you launched AMP. Was that it's been within the last year, if I remember right.
Year and a half.
I'm wrong.
It's been a year and a half. Yep.
Were you a business owner before that, or did you have any kind of, corporation or anything, or because I know you worked for JB.
Yeah.
But
so I mentioned the speaking business, like we can count that, I guess.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I did that. So I guess technically if we want to look at it, this is my third business. So they say third time's the charm. So let's say let's fortunate for that. But so the first business I did, I was very aggressive. So the first business I did was called Collegiate. I love acronyms apparently. Collegiate Gaming Land. So CGL.
CG.
I don't know why I like these like 3-letter. I don't know what it is. So it's called.
It works.
It works. I'm gonna keep doing the same thing. So CGL. So what we did is we host video game tournaments on college campuses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So and the sell motion with that was crazy. I just would walk in at UGA's campus to any restaurant on like a Wednesday, and I said, "Can I talk to the owner?" And I said, "Hey, like, how would you like more people in this room on Wednesdays?" And she's like, "Yeah, I would like that." And I'd be like, yeah, so I can get gamers here who typically never come in here at all to come to this place. And so like, would you be open to that? Sure. So I got the space for free. Then I already had the video games because I was a gamer. So that was inventory cost was like nothing. And then I had to, so this is funny. So this is actually a really great example. I want y'all to really listen to this and tell you how granular this was to build this company. We talked about being a subject matter expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I obviously had to get the gamers to show up to the tournament. Well, I emailed them, messaged them, no one responded. So I showed up to the game club. And I was like, hey, I'm looking to host a video game tournament. They're like, oh yeah, we seen your messages. We're like, we don't think you can actually play video games. So I'm telling you what happened. So they were like, we don't know. We can't show up to your tournament. We don't know if you can play. So one of their best people in Super Smash Bros. Bro, this guy was really good. But the thing is, I knew how to play, and so we went back and forth. I lost, but it was a good match. So they were like, "All right, you actually know how to play video games." It was crazy. It was crazy. So then after that, they were like, "What do you need? How can we help?" They started tapping into other areas I didn't know existed, and then I had huge support from the gaming community to build this business. But again, it was because I showed subject matter expertise. If I was terrible at gaming, that company doesn't go anywhere. But in that moment, when I showed them I was good, they were like, yo, like, this is dope. So it was a very interesting moment. But yeah, so that was the first business. Then I did, basically it was like Morgan Ingram Liberates was the company. It was a speaking company. And then I stopped and went into sales, did my thing there. Almost went off on my own from the SDR Chronicles, but I just, in the moment, I like prayed about it. I talked to my parents. I talked to multiple mentors. John was the right decision. That ended up being really good for me and for both of us. And then we already knew as soon as after JV sales, I was going to go off on my own. That was really for me like a sales university and like just business acumen and just like growing up as a person. So this is technically my third business.
Okay, so back to the video game, like bake off.
Crazy, right?
I don't know why I'm visualizing like an 80s montage, like you training for, I don't know, whatever it was, like Counter-Strike or whatever it would have been at the time. Like,
it was
that is hilarious.
It was crazy.
There's riches and niches. You got to show them that you can do it, you know?
They had to see it.
So what are some surprising lessons that being a business owner has taught you about sales that can inspire some of our listeners to maybe go start that side hustle, or even if it's a video game?
The challenges? I think the challenge is not going to get anyone excited, or is it?
Yeah. Well, maybe learnings, things you learned, surprising things you learned about sales from owning 3 businesses.
Yeah. So I'd say, the SDR role is even more important than people realize. Because when you start out, you got to talk to people.
Yep.
You're not going to know anything unless you start sharing what your offer is. Like I could go in AI all day long and do role plays. I can talk to my mentor about it. But no, it doesn't matter until I get real customer feedback on, is this interesting or not? Do they want to take a meeting at all? Now I have a benefit because I built the brand. So I could message a lot of people on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm doing this thing, and they'll just talk to me because of the equity I built over time. So they know who I am. So they know if I'm building something, it should lead to something. But I would say like, yeah, the lessons I learned as an SDR directly applicable. Like I tell my team, like I am the SDR. I will bring the pipeline. And that's good, right? Yeah. We always will have opportunities, right? So I think that was a big thing. I think 2 is, as a founder, you're just a salesperson plus everything else, right? Sales just don't go away. It's not like you're a founder. It's like, well, I could just vision cast all day long. It's like, no, you actually got to like get in the trenches and actually like be the seller that you already were. It's just added on to more things. But the cool thing is that you now are able to sell your own thing, which leads to more belief and more enthusiasm because it is what you have built. So there's more of a greater feeling when you close deals. It's more euphoria than just like the normal thing you would do, to be honest. Like it's been like, I feel a different feeling closing these deals than I would closing the other deals, right? That's just the truth. And I think the biggest challenge that you run into is making sure to do your own coaching of yourself and how you can be better, because you don't have that accountability from your manager anymore, or you don't have that pipeline. Like you are the review of your pipeline. So yeah, you can lie to yourself about the forecast, but I wouldn't recommend to do that because it's your own business. So
no one wins.
Yeah, nobody wins that. So I think that's probably the challenging part, because now you really have to hold yourself accountable. You can't make up numbers because it's your business now. So I would not encourage you to do that.
We can attest to that feeling of when you close a deal on something you created. And from my perspective, I've been in like enterprise AE roles for the last handful of years. And so I've closed some really awesome like SaaS deals that were, high ticket, large ARR deals. But you can ask Chase, I get more excited sometimes when we close like an hourly coaching, package that's like a couple $100 versus like closing a 6-figure deal. For me, because it's like, hey, this is like, I'm selling my brain to somebody for an hourly rate, or when we, we sold our first round of sponsorships for the show. That was exciting because it was like, wow, there's like people that are giving us money for our ideas and to, for our exposure that we have and the audience we've built. That's like really like, it's super exciting, even though they're not huge, multi 6-figure sponsorship contracts or anything, but it's still like there's you get a huge rush from selling your product, whatever that ends up being. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, 100%. So that's what I would say there.
And Morgan, I'm the reverse opposite. So I call myself recovering entrepreneur turned SaaS sales executive. So I had the businesses before I got into sales, and it's amazing. I didn't have a CRM, and I built my valet company to $1 million, but it was just all over the place. And I think that people just underestimate the value of understanding these tools, of actually how to prospect, how to talk to somebody, how to communicate with a team. You can take that wherever you go, and really like the compound effect is real, especially with what you're sharing of your content story, of your LinkedIn. It's a free account that you started. I don't know however long you started it. That was a free thing, and it has just brought you so much gold.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing is like the distribution of how you go about it is free. Learning how to actually do that, different story, but the actual act of that distribution is free, and take full advantage of it. You can learn a lot. And that's what's up.
So Morgan, just in closing, well, first I want to hear, what advice, if you had to boil down, kind of the state of our industry. It's late 2024. We're heading into a new year here pretty soon. The world's changing. There's a lot going on in the macro economy.
A lot, yeah.
If you could boil it down to like 3 pieces of key advice for our listeners who, again, are, individual contributor sellers, a lot of them working in startups, trying to build brands, trying to close deals, trying to move pipeline through. If you had 2 or 3 pieces of advice you could share, what would those be?
So number 3 things. So I would say number 1 is I would take the time. And I show this to people sometimes, and they think it's overwhelming, but it actually is just helpful for you. I would find your most successful emails, videos, voice notes, whatever, however you schedule meetings. And if you can find other reps who are the same, do the same. Find your most successful outbound touches and put it in AI and have it tell you why it's successful. Like how many characters, the tone, like the length, like get a real understanding of why people respond. Because I don't think that personalization or being relevant is going to go away, but the increase of AI outbound that is not personalized is going to detract or diminish what people could do if they were personalized and relevant. So I would say focusing on why things are successful is important. And AI does a better job of distilling that than we all do. So I would encourage that. The second thing is, I would find ways to incorporate video more in your sales cycle, not in the prospecting side, because I've talked about it a lot and like, I think people get it at this point, but like in the sales cycle, like how are you doing like walkthroughs of your product that someone made a miss? How are you doing a walkthrough of your proposal? Like video walkthrough proposals have closed me millions of dollars of deals as a whole, right? Just by knowing how to do it. So I would say tapping into that is going to be really important. And I also would say and these are really like tactical things that you may already be doing, but like I'm just thinking about it, is like 2025, I think is going to be the year of people getting in touch with their humanity again. I think we've been, AI, I think about it, right? Past 4 years have been like AI, COVID, like just all this stuff, like elections, bots. It's just like too much going on. And so I think that people are like, I just want to get back to like the human connection that we had before all this was happening, before COVID. And I think that's why you're seeing a huge rise in content, right? But I also would say that's why you're going to see a huge rise in people saying, hey, I just want to connect. And so what am I saying there? I'm saying make sure that you can connect with people via text, Slack, WhatsApp, whatever that is, and start having those conversations from there. So those are the things that I would be focusing on across the board.
Gold. especially the video proposal one. I've never done one of those, but I am going to try that now because
what is your go-to tool for that? Loom, or what do you use for that?
I think there's a lot of tools out there, right? There's a SynthSpark, there's a Loom, etc.
Okay.
I prefer a Loom. At the end of the day, really quick, really simple. But I mean, Loom, SynthSpark, Vidyard. There's a Wistia soapbox. Like, there's so many options. Like, pick which one you like, but that's the direction you can go.
And Morgan, tell us, tell our fans about your company, how they can get in touch with you, and do you have any courses that people can sign up for?
There are no courses. We'll see if I had a mention one. I never have personally done one, but there's no courses or anything.
Okay.
I would tell people, if you want to like learn, like, go to YouTube. That's where I'm getting very deep. I've just started building that up, so that's where you can go. In terms of learning more about like what we do, so I know there's a lot of sellers probably listening in here. Our main focus is to really empower the seller, but in a different way, is by helping your executives and leaders post more content so your job's easier prospecting. Because when they create content and they're more visible, your comes more visible, you're going to get more opportunities. And so we're helping people become subject matter experts digitally, and put their information out there. So it's influencer marketing, I would say, in reverse. But the reason we're doing that is because when I went and trained Google, y'all will laugh at this, their cold calling intro was, "Hi, I'm Morgan from Google. Do you want to have a meeting?"
What part of Google?
I mean, but their conversion rate was like 80%.
Because it's Google.
Because it's Google.
Yes. Yeah.
It was pretty straightforward. So they were just like, "Yeah, I want to meet." So they were like, "Can you change that?" And I was like, "It's pretty hard. Like, if you work at Google and you're getting copped on meetings and you just say Google, it's kind of hard for me to tell you to not do that."
To not do that. Yeah, exactly.
So why I'm putting that as an example, or it's an outlandish example, but that's what you want as a seller. You want your brand to be known, and you want people to know your CEO or executive. So when you call, at least it's just an easier conversation. Great. And that's all we're really fighting for.
I can tell you at Hyros, I mean, I think Hyros we're on this trajectory of just really scaling right now. And Alex Becker, our founder, is like leaning into it so hard with his ads and everything. And it just helps us as sellers there just close deals.
Yeah, it gets that top of funnel stuff going. Much easier to do that when you have some name recognition when you reach out.
Exactly.
Well, awesome. Morgan, this was a fantastic conversation. I know our fans are going to love this one. Thanks so much for coming on, man, and sharing your story and so many great ideas and advice for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for having me.